Hello and welcome to the Learning Love podcast. This is where we learn what love is and how to live a life of love in every area. My name is Dr. Mark A. Hicks, author of the book Learning Love. Love can be practical, tangible, and a realistic life for everyone, regardless of your relationship experiences so far. So thank you for joining me as we spend some time learning love.
Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. And today's question is, how do we deal with grief during the holidays? Grief is part of love. When we put our hearts, our lives out there to connect with other people, sometimes we're going to get our heart broken. The reality is life is temporary, and sometimes people we love will pass away. And that is going to hurt. And it's a special kind of hurt during the holidays. Or maybe it's not quite that traumatic. Maybe you're in a situation this year where that little child that used to run around your house and open all those gifts on Christmas morning is now at their in-laws' house opening gifts on Christmas morning, maybe with their own kids. And it's not that that's a bad thing, but you miss having that child around, that they can't always be there for the traditions that became so special to you when the children were young. Or maybe this is the first year after your divorce. You're not grieving the loss of a person. Maybe it's even a relief to not have that person in your life this holiday season. But you've lost the dream. All the hopes and dreams you had going into that marriage, all the work that you put into it, trying to save that marriage, is now gone. And that hurts. There's lots of ways that we can grieve. And during the holidays, it's a special kind of hurt. It's just a little different. Now, sometimes we get into this idea that we're going to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and just go on. And we might think to ourselves, well, I've made it through the last few months. Why should Christmas be any different? It's just different. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. In the first segment of the show today, we're going to talk about why grief feels heavier during the holidays. It's just a tougher load to bear during the holiday season. And there's reason for that. You're not crazy. You're not weak. If it seems like it's a lot tougher during the holidays, it is. We all sort of know that, but we don't often ask why. Today, we're going to answer that question. We're going to talk about why grief is so heavy during the holidays. Then in the second segment of the show, we're going to talk about what to do about it. How to deal with grief during the holidays. Things you can do to help yourself. It's not going to fix the problem. It's a strategy that can help make things a little more bearable, a little more tolerable, and you might even have the ability to have a few heartwarming moments along the way. Maybe Christmas won't be good, but maybe it'll be okay. And okay is what we're shooting for when we're grieving. We're not looking for great, but we're trying to get past the utter despair and into a place of moderation where it hurts, but we are managing that hurt in the healthiest way possible. We're going to talk about how to do that. And in the third segment, we're going to talk about how you can help someone who is grieving. Maybe you're not grieving yourself. Maybe you don't have reason to grieve this holiday season, but you know someone who does, and they mean a lot to you, and you want to know what to do. And so we're going to have some tips in the third segment on what to do to help someone that is grieving during the holidays. But through it all, the most important thing to remember is that grief is not a bad thing. Grief is a healer. Grief is our comeback story. Yes, it hurts. It is miserable, but it also heals. In time, as you go through the grief process, grief is your way back. It is your comeback story. You can't fix what happened in the past, but you can go on to a good life. And grief is the way to do that. One of the things I often say is that some things in life are so painful they leave a hole in our heart. But you can live a really good life with a hole in your heart. Grief lets us do that. Grief gets us to a place where we live the rest of our life with a hole in our heart. Life will never be the same after some losses. But we can live a really good life with that hole in our heart. We can still have connections. We can still have a life of love. We can still have happiness. And all of that comes through the process of grief. So don't run from it. Don't be afraid of it. Yes, it's going to hurt. But there's ways that you can manage that grief, help yourself through that process of healing to live that good life with a hole in your heart. And so if you're grieving during the holidays, or if you know someone who is, I want this show to be of help to you. And if you know someone that is, I'm going to give you some tips to help them. But one of those tips may be send them this recording and let them listen for themselves how to go through this grief process during the holiday season. And so let's get started by taking a look at why grief is so difficult, especially during the holidays. So we all know grief is difficult. That's obvious. It's even more difficult during the holidays. That we all know too. But why? That's the question we don't always ask. And when we know the answer to that question, we can avoid some of the pitfalls that come with grief during the holidays. When we don't understand why it's so difficult, sometimes we make it even more so because we don't know what to do or what to avoid. So let's talk about why grief is even more painful, more difficult, and seems even heavier during the holiday season. First of all, there are heightened expectations. This is supposed to be a season of joy, a season of togetherness. And even though there is nothing joyful about grief, and we may not be able to be together with the one we love or ones we love because of circumstances in our life that are causing this grief, there is still the expectation. There is the should. One of the things I talk about in my book, Learning Love, is that we have to give up the shoulds. These expectations don't help us. When we say it should be this way, I should be joyful, I should enjoy the gatherings, it puts an expectation on us that's just not realistic. Now, we might be able to find some joy in the season, even in the midst of grief. There may be some heartwarming moments, and maybe we will enjoy some of the gatherings, and they may mean a lot to us during that time of grief to get together with friends and family. But we have to let go of the expectation. You're going to feel how you feel. And you can't always predict that during a time of grief. Grief tends to come in waves, and maybe you'll be looking forward to a gathering with friends or family. Maybe you'll feel up to it and you'll think this is going to be good for me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone. And then a wave of grief will hit and it will just knock you down. That's okay. That's part of the grief process. It does come in waves. You're going to have good days and bad days. And so let go of the expectations. It's okay to say, yes, I would love to come to your gathering if I can manage it that day. I really want to be there. But please understand, I'm going to have good days and bad days during this time of grief. And if I just can't make it, I may have to just not be there. But if I can, I will, and I want to. Those are the kinds of responses that are perfectly adequate and help you navigate these expectations. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to find joy during the holidays, to feel connected to your friends and family. People of the Christian faith sometimes feel guilty that they're not able to feel joy in the holidays because it's not supposed to be about the presents and the gatherings and the parties and the get-togethers. It's supposed to be about Jesus and celebrating that birth of Christ. And sometimes if we're not feeling that joy as a Christian, we feel guilty about that. Let me just say, when you're grieving, God understands. Let yourself off the hook. God's not going to be mad at you because you're struggling to feel joy during the Christmas season, during a time of grief. So let go of the expectations. Get rid of the word should. This idea that you should appreciate the reason for the season, that you should still appreciate the people that are in your life right now, your friends and family that are here for you, and you need to be at those gatherings and those parties with them, that you need to feel a certain way and have certain heartwarming moments. Let go of those expectations. You may have them, and when they come along, enjoy them. When you feel the joy of the season, when you have a heartwarming moment, when you feel connections and appreciation for those you love, enjoy those moments. But you're also going to have moments of despair and feelings of loneliness, even in a crowd. It's okay. That's part of the grief process. It comes in waves. Let it be. That's easier said than done, but let it be. Don't put expectations on yourself. Just do what you can. No more, no less. Just what you can. Another reason grief is so heavy during the holidays is the change in the social dynamic. Those gatherings that you loved so much before are now going to feel awkward. If you've been married for a number of years and your spouse has passed away, getting together with the kids is going to be great. You're going to want that. You're going to appreciate having your kids around, but it's still going to feel awkward because your spouse is not there. There's going to be an emptiness, even as you gather with the people you love. That social dynamic is now changed. It just doesn't feel the same. If you've been through a divorce and now you're going to parties as a single person, that dynamic is vastly different for you. It's just going to feel different. The social dynamic just changes. If you're an empty nester and you come into a gathering and there are kids around and parents are chasing their kids and trying to keep them out of trouble, you're going to have all those memories and it may pull on your heartstrings a bit. The social dynamic is going to be different. That's okay. Different is not bad. It just feels awkward at first. Let it feel awkward. Awkward is not a bad thing. It just means your mind and your heart is adjusting to something new. And that takes time. Awkwardness is just your body sending signals of, oh, this is different. That's okay. Don't freak out about the awkwardness. It just feels weird. It's not the same as it used to be. So just let it be. Accept the awkwardness and understand over time your mind and your heart will adjust to a new normal, and you can go on to live that good life with that hole in your heart. Another reason that the holidays seem so heavy is very often we have more downtime. Companies often shut down for a day or two, maybe even a week or two. That can give us a lot of time. In some ways that can be good because we may struggle in our jobs. We may need a break from our work when we're grieving, but too much time on our hands can put us in a place of despair. It can begin to feel like the grief is closing in around you. And so make plans. You don't always have to keep them, but make plans. Get out, have lunch with a friend, meet somebody to go shopping. Don't crowd your schedule planning something every minute, but plan something. If you've got a week off of work during Christmas, don't sit at home alone for a week. That's not going to help you. Make some plans ahead of time to meet people, to call people, to talk to people, to do some things. You don't even have to enjoy them, but just getting out can help you. So once we think through it a little, we can not only see that grief is even heavier during the holidays, but we can understand why. And that gives us a little bit of insight on what to do about it. But let's look further at that. What do we do about grief during the holidays? Well, the number one rule all the time, in every circumstance, and especially during the holiday season, for dealing with grief is get help. If you believe there is a stigma to getting help for your mental and emotional health, you are mistaken. There's nothing wrong with it. If it feels like something is wrong with doing that, it's because people have put that idea in your head. Society has told us that, and society is wrong. We go to a doctor for our physical health. We go to a dentist for our teeth. We go to a mechanic for our car. We call a plumber, a lawyer, any number of professionals to get help all the time with situations in our life. Why would we do any less for our mental and emotional health, especially when we are grieving, and especially when we are grieving at a time that is much heavier to carry that grief, which is the holidays? Find a therapist, get a counselor, find a coach, someone in your life that can help you on a professional level and help you deal with your situation specifically. Grief is different for everyone. I can talk about it in general terms and give you some really good insight and tips on how to deal with it, but everyone is different. Every situation is different, and you need someone that can help guide you through your specific circumstances. So do yourself a favor, show yourself a little compassion, and get some help. It's the best thing you can possibly do for yourself. The next thing I would say is don't run from your feelings. You feel what you feel. If you try to suppress it, it's just going to make it worse. You may have a crying spell during a get-together where everyone else is happy and joyful and raising a glass in celebration. That's okay. No one's going to think bad of you for that. And if they do, they're a monster. If a wave of grief comes over you and the tears start to flow, it's okay. Take a minute, excuse yourself, get together with maybe just one or two people there at the party that are close friends. Cry on their shoulder for a little while. It's okay. Let that wave of grief come and go naturally. Don't fight it. And then maybe you can return. And if your eyes are all puffy, well, that's just fine. Again, anyone who thinks badly of you for that doesn't have an opinion worth valuing. So don't hide your feelings. Don't suppress those feelings. The waves of grief are going to come, maybe at unexpected times, and that's okay. You feel what you feel, and you have every right to feel that way. There's going to be good times and bad times. Let them be good when they're good. Let them be bad when they're bad. It's okay. It will get better with time and with therapy. But in the meantime, you feel what you feel, and that's okay. The next thing, and we talked about this just a bit in segment 1, manage your time. Don't get too busy trying to just push everything out of your mind. Some people think if they stay busy all the time, they can avoid grief. That's a good way to crash. So don't be overly busy, but don't be underly busy either. Get out and do some things, even if it's hard. So manage your time. Don't fill every minute with stuff to do, but don't let there be huge voids in your schedule. Have some moderation. Keep yourself active, but not too active. There's a line to walk there. Let yourself kind of feel your way through it to find where that line is. And the other great thing you can do for yourself is just take care of yourself. Self-care is really important, and little things go a long way. Drink plenty of water. I know that seems trivial when you're grieving, but grief is hard physical work. So drink plenty of water. Get some nutrition. Your appetite is probably going to be a mess. You're either going to not be hungry or you're going to crave things that are bad for you. Even if it doesn't taste very good, get a little bit of nutritious food in you. It may not take much if your appetite is completely gone, but eat something that is healthy every day. And talk to your doctor. Get some advice on how you can keep yourself healthy physically during this time. Grief is hard physical work. So take care of yourself. Pamper yourself. Do nice things for yourself. Do things that take care of you. Get a little bit of exercise. You don't have to train for a marathon, but don't just lay in bed all day. Go for a walk. Get a little bit of exercise to keep your body moving. A little can go a long way during a time of grief. So you don't have to overdo it, but make sure you're getting some nutritious food. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Get some exercise, those basic health things. Talk to your doctor and see how you can stay healthy as much as possible, and you'll have an easier time carrying that heavy load. It's not easy, but it'll be a little bit more tolerable that way. And I can wrap this whole segment up by saying the simple words, take care of yourself. Your time, your body, your mental health. Get the help you need to take care of you. And finally, what can you do to help people that you care about during the holidays when they are grieving? Well, first of all, you can listen to everything I've said so far and encourage them to do that. Again, sending this recording to them, encouraging them to listen to it, can be a good step. Listen to it yourself, maybe a couple of times. Make some notes, and then encourage them to do these things. But there are some more specific things I'll say to you if you are wanting to help someone who is grieving during the holidays. One, acknowledge their grief and don't be afraid of their emotions. Sometimes we're afraid if we say something, they may start to cry. And then we'll feel guilty because we made them cry. It's okay if they cry. They need you to recognize their loss. It's very lonely to be in grief because everybody else's life is going on as normal. And so recognize their loss. Recognize what they're going through. Say things like, I know this has got to be a tough time for you. I want you to know I'm here for you. Those kind of statements can mean a lot, especially when you really are going to be there for them. Don't just make empty promises. But if you really do care about someone, recognize what they're feeling. If they start to show emotion, just let them show it. It's okay. Don't be scared if they start to cry or if they start to seem snippy, if they start to seem irritated or angry. All that's normal. Just let them have their emotions and try to take it in stride as much as you can. Always reassure them that what they're feeling is okay. It's normal. And you just want to be there for them as best you can. Another thing you can do is invite them to participate in gatherings as you normally would, but don't pressure them. Don't assume they don't want to come because everybody's going to be having a good time and they'll feel awkward. Yeah, they might feel awkward, but that's okay. Invite them, but don't pressure them. If they just can't make it, that's okay. Don't say things like, oh, you need to be there, you need to get out, this is going to be good for you. Just let them do what they can. And so always invite them just as you normally would, but don't pressure them. If they need to come for a little while and then leave, that's okay. If they can't come at all, that's okay. If they come, they have a crying spell, and then they come back, that's okay. No pressure. But make sure you include them just as you normally would in every invitation. Another thing that you can consider is help them in some practical ways. Remember, you're not a psychologist, you're not a counselor, you're not a therapist, so don't try to play one. But you can do some practical things. Take them out to lunch. Maybe drive them to go Christmas shopping. Sometimes when you're carrying that heavy load of grief, just to fight traffic seems like way too much. So drive them to the shopping center and maybe help them do their Christmas shopping. There's lots of practical things you can do. And so think about what they might need and then offer to do that. Those practical things can really be appreciated when someone is struggling. And finally, make sure you listen. Again, you're not a therapist, so don't try to play one, but you can listen. Everyone can listen. And if you don't know what to say, the best thing to say is, I don't know what to say, but I'm here to listen. Don't offer advice. Don't try to fix things. Don't try to tell them how they should feel. Just listen. This may be hard to understand, but talking is a healing process. Telling the story. And maybe you've heard the story over and over and over again by now, but listen to the story again. That's a healing process. And instinctively, many people are just going to want to talk. They're going to want to tell you the same story they've told you before because they just need to talk. If you love someone, you care for someone, and you want to help them, just listen. You'll be surprised how much that helps. Grief is difficult, and it's especially difficult during the holidays. It's difficult for the person who is grieving, and it's difficult for the people around them to know what to do. But just these few insights can help you. Put them into place. Understand that it's more difficult this time of year, so give yourself a break. Don't be so hard on yourself. Understand that there are things you can do to help yourself, especially by getting therapy. And if you care about someone who is grieving, give them some help by listening, giving them practical help, doing some practical things that can help out, and let them feel what they feel. Become comfortable with that. It's not going to be easy to get through the holiday season during a time of grief, but you can do it. And remember, as much as it hurts, grief is a healer. It's part of your comeback story. Yes, it feels like you have a hole in your heart, but you can live a really good life with a hole in your heart. So keep grieving.
Thank you for joining me on the Learning Love podcast. If you're ready to live your life of love, visit my website, markahicks.com, to get my free ebook, The 5 Components of Love. And coming in 2025, my new book from Morgan James Publishing, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters and Healthy Relationships That Last. Pre-orders will be available soon. And remember, love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. Love well, everyone.